I think solidarity in a global world is indispensable. Terror is something that is surrounding us in the world, in Spain, and I am, as a Basque, I know very well what terror means. What we need is solidarity. All the countries in the world are concerned with terrorism. It's not a matter of one country or a large country. It's a matter of all countries in the world, because we have to defend the people, the person, the human being. Therefore, one of the great challenges in our time is to face terror in a solider way. Well, President Obama has looked very carefully to what means the reality of our times. And I mentioned the idea of solidarity in a global way. And what Europe needs now is first to exist as a global power. Till now, Europe has made great efforts in economy, but has not reached a success as a world power. Therefore, what I imagine that demands the United States and President Obama to Europeans is to be united and not divided, as was the case in the last years. Oh yes, well, I have been looking with great expectation what would happen in Ireland. I was very much in favor of the European Constitution. As a matter of fact, when I was Member of Parliament and President of the Constitution Committee in Parliament in 1993, I presented a draft constitution, which was a dream in that time. And it was left as a dream. It didn't come to reality. But, well, I think many people and many governments were convinced that in an enlarged union, some changes had to be introduced in the process of the European Union. And therefore, they imagined the idea of a constitution that was not exactly a constitution. It was a treaty that established the basis of the constitution. But, as everybody knows, this was not accepted by two founding countries of the Union, France and the Netherlands. Therefore, they had to think about it for some time, some years, and finally they drafted a treaty that was very similar to the constitution, but some words changed. As a matter of fact, the word constitution itself, I don't think it's so important, the word constitution, as the content of the constitution and now of the treaty. In my opinion, this treaty is a good challenge to the problems of our time. So I think I quite agree with the terms of this treaty. I'm an old Europeanist, so I would always like to go further. But I think it's quite correct for our times to have this treaty. The problem is that the acceptance of the treaty needs the approval of all the member states. Probably in the future some change has to be introduced, because it will be very difficult. It is now with 27, it will be more with 30, 35, I don't know how many. So some kind of solution has to be found if one country does not agree, and also to give the opportunity of a country who wants to leave the Union to see the ways and means of doing it. But I think the result of the approval in Ireland is very important. Now, as a matter of fact, there are only 2 countries that have not yet approved. There were 3, but Germany has done very recently, and that was not problem. Problem now is with Poland, but apparently the President of Poland will sign in a short period of time. And now the only problem is the Czechs, which is very curious because the Parliament has accepted, the House of Representatives and the Senate, and it's only the President and a group of 17 senators who are presented to the Constitutional Court, well, a demand to see if it's correct under the laws of Czechia to accept. They know it is, because that was presented already before to the Constitutional Court for some points of the treaty that they thought that might not be in accordance with the Czech legislation, but the court said that it was. So now what they've done is to ask if the whole treaty is in accordance with the Czech constitution. It's just a measure taken in order to postpone the approval, perhaps in accordance with the British Conservatives, and especially its leader, that are waiting, hoping that in perhaps 6 months' time there will be an election, and then they will ask a referendum for the treaty as a whole in Great Britain. You see, I think we can't go on forever with all these little tricky attitudes that are inadmissible. Something has to be done. And the same as it was prepared, that constitution, and now this treaty. Well, here also we can't be 500 million people waiting if one gentleman, even if he's so distinguished as the President of the Republic, simply says that he would like to postpone the approval of a treaty. What I think is the way out is a system of differentiation in the approach to the approval of the texts. Not all have to approve everything, and there could be different rhythms of approval. As a matter of fact, this exists already. This is the case of the euro. Not all the member states are members of euro. Even if some, like Britain or Sweden, have all the necessary requirements to be, but they don't want to join the euro land. Well, that's their problem. But this is accepted. And there is a case of Schengen, where you also have Britain that does not accept Schengen, but accepts many other things. So I think these different rhythms of integration should be introduced more clearly. And the idea of a reinforced cooperation that exists already since Maastricht, but has not been sufficiently applied, should come into force and permit that a certain number of countries that want to pursue the targets of the Union with more speed can do it. So that's my position. I've been a little long, but it's something that is very close to my heart, everything which is related with the European Union, and very specifically of the success of this union that, in my opinion, has been the greatest success probably in international politics of the second half of the 20th century.